Hey everybody, it's AJ from Disney Food Blog. Today we're going to tackle a huge question we get asked a lot here on DFB. What's the difference between Disneyland and Disney World? So I'm not going to tell you which one is better because they both serve their purposes depending on your family, but we are going to talk about the specifics and the differences so that we can help you make that decision, what's right for your family on your trip. Okay, so first up, obviously Disneyland is in California, Disney World is in Florida. So depending on your coast, one or the other might be more efficient, more logical for you to choose to visit because the plane flight will be shorter and less expensive, or you can drive there, etc. So once you figure that out, the main difference between Disneyland and Disney World is that Disneyland is much, much smaller. Disneyland has 2 parks, a downtown Disney district, and 3 Disney-owned resorts, whereas Disney World is the size of Manhattan. It's huge, 40 square miles, dozens of hotels, 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, the huge Disney Springs dining and shopping district. This place is massive. So how does that affect you? When you're in Disneyland, you can walk from resort to park to resort to restaurant, not ever have to worry about getting in a car. When you're in Disney World, you're definitely going to have to take some sort of transportation, whether that's Disney transportation, your rental car, an Uber, Lyft, or minivan. You're going to have to get from here to there via some sort of transportation. So that's a huge concern for maybe folks with mobility concerns who are pushing giant strollers around. Disneyland might be a better choice because it's simply easier to get around and to get to everything directly from your hotel. That said, Disney World has great transportation. So a lot of people see the trade-off as not that great since it's easy enough to get around Disney World even though you can't walk everywhere. Okay, next up, let's talk about cost. Basically, Disneyland and Disney World are both going to cost you an arm and a leg. They're both extremely expensive. And the other thing that's a similarity between the two is that you can do it relatively cheaply or you can do it expensively for both coasts. When it comes to park tickets, a Disney World 4-day park hopper right now, when we're publishing this, is about $473 per person. And those prices go up every year a little bit. Disneyland, a 4-day park hopper, which takes you to only 2 parks, remember, it doesn't take you to 4 parks, is $335 a person. Those are for adult prices. So you're saving a few dollars on a Disneyland ticket, but remember, you're also losing 2 huge theme parks when you consider that. So that would make me say that the costs for tickets are about comparable for both coasts. So ticket prices are about a wash between the two because at Disney World you're going to pay more, but you're going to get more parks. In Disneyland you're going to pay slightly less, but you only have 2 parks there. So other costs to consider. Resort hotel costs. Again, this is always going to depend on whether you stay in a Disney-owned hotel or a non-Disney resort or off-property, so to speak. One thing, we're going to have a whole resorts section later on where I'll go into detail on this, but in terms of costs, again, you're going to find it to be about a wash because Disney World has lots of Disney-owned resorts at lots of different price points. Disneyland only has 3 Disney-owned resorts and they're all at deluxe level price points. However, they've got a whole bunch of good neighbor hotels, they call them good neighbor hotels because they're kind of approved by Disneyland, that are within walking distance of the parks. So they're great hotels, they're decent pricing, like a value resort price in Disney World, and they're within walking distance of the parks, which is crazy. You just don't get that in Disney World very often. So that's pretty awesome. So I'm going to say this is a wash too in terms of cost for your hotel because you can pay the high prices and stay in the deluxes, or you can pay the lower prices and have a Disney-owned resort hotel in Disney World or be within walking distance of the park in Disneyland. And finally, as far as cost for food, again, this is going to be very comparable. You can always do super cheap stuff. You can do the counter service, you can bring your own food, or you can do the high-end food. Both places offer all those options. So pricing on these 2 options, Disney World or Disneyland, are going to be pretty comparable, and you can save a few bucks here and there, but always remember you're going to get, 4 parks and a lot more to do over in Disney World than you are in Disneyland, so that's kind of where the cost savings will come in. So I'd say as far as costs, the 2 again are going to be pretty comparable. All right, so let's move on to resorts. So like I said, you have 3 Disney-owned resort hotels in Disneyland. You have Disneyland Hotel, Grand Californian, and Paradise Pier, which I don't know if they're going to change the name of that. Are they going to change the name of that now that it's changing to Pixar Pier? I don't know. Those are all Disney hotels and they're all very expensive, $400, $500 a night, easy. But like I said, you also have a lot of good neighbor hotels that are going to be at lower price points, closer to those moderate and value resort price points that you find in Disney World. So lots of good options there, except when you're paying those prices, you're not getting Disney theming at those Good Neighbor hotels. So that's something to take into consideration. Then again, you're also within walking distance to those Disneyland parks. Can't beat that. So over in Disney World, you have those deluxe, moderate, and value resorts at all different price points. They all have Disney theming. Some of them are within walking distance to the parks, but usually you have to pay the deluxe level prices to get that walking distance. So there's the difference between the resort hotel options in Disney World and Disneyland. All right, let's move on to the food, your restaurants in Disney World and Disneyland. So Disney World is, of course, going to offer you a lot more variety. If your goal is to go on a Disney vacation and eat, you want to go to Disney World. Disney World's going to offer you so many options, incredible chefs, really amazing table service, stellar quality, just really, really good variety over in Disney World. Disneyland has many fewer restaurants. They're not going to have as much stuff because they don't have as many parks, they don't have as many resorts, they don't have as many locations to put restaurants. So Disneyland really focuses a little bit more on their park food. Their park food is usually better than Disney World's park food overall, in my experience. That's my subjective opinion. You guys are welcome to let me know in the comments what you think. But Disneyland really focuses on its counter service as well. A lot of its counter service is very, very good. But again, in terms of variety, Disney World is the winner here because it just offers more options. There's much, much more to eat, many more choices, and can suit the tastes of a wider variety of people. But for some reason, I've always thought Disneyland's food had a little bit of an edge over Disney World's food, especially that counter service. And when it comes to restaurants, I'm not really even going to talk about the Disney dining plan over in Disney World because it doesn't really affect your costs that much when it comes to what you're actually going to buy and eat in the two locations. But if prepaying for your meals is a thing you really want to do, that Disney dining plan over in Disney World is a good option for you. Last thing I'm going to talk about here is rides and attractions. Again, Disney World is going to have a lot more rides and attractions. Disneyland is going to have your classic stuff. And they've got many of the same attractions on both coasts. Splash Mountain, Space Mountain, Toy Story Midway Mania, the Teacups, It's a Small World. Those are all going to be similar. Of course, each resort, Disney World and Disneyland, are going to have their kind of standout, unique attractions. The Matterhorn in Disneyland, Mission Breakout, Guardians of the Galaxy over in Disney California Adventure. Disney World now has Pandora with Flight of Passage, that incredible ride. So definitely take a look at the rides and see which ones are must-dos for your family, and that'll help inform which coast you go to. And don't forget, Star Wars Land is coming to both locations. So if you're a huge Star Wars fan, pretty soon you're going to be able to go to either coast and experience those Star Wars attractions. So the big thing when it comes to attractions that may change your mind either way is FastPass and the My Disney Experience system. Over in Disney World, they have the My Disney Experience app where you can make FastPasses 60 days ahead of time you're staying at a Disney World resort, 30 days ahead of time if you're not. You can make those right on your phone. You can also change, update, cancel your FastPasses on your phone right there in the parks. Easy peasy to use. Also, many more Disney World attractions have FastPass available than Disneyland. Disneyland, very few of the attractions have FastPass available. And if you do want to make those FastPasses on your phone, which you can't do in advance at all, you can only make them on your phone the day of, and you actually have to purchase that option right now through something called MaxPass. So it'll cost you $10 a day to actually make your FastPasses on your phone. So to me, that's a huge, huge, huge detriment to choosing Disneyland, is that you can't make your FastPasses ahead of time and you have to pay to actually make them at all on your phone. And the other detriment is that, like I said, not a lot of those attractions do have FastPass. So you're going to find yourself waiting in those long lines, a lot of times with your children, because a lot of those attractions were not built to have covered queue systems. So you're outside, you're with your kids, you're waiting hours to ride a 10-minute roller coaster. So that's a huge drawback to Disneyland for me, but that's a big difference to consider. Do you have, little kids who aren't good at waiting in lines? Disneyland's probably not the right choice. Head over to Disney World where you can make all of those plans in advance and make sure you have your fast passes in place for all those rides your kids are going to want to go on. But the fact that you can't make those reservations 60 days in advance or plan your trip a year in advance may be a benefit or a pro to you if you don't want to plan everything to death and you just want to go and have a great time. Disneyland is perfect for you. So as you can see, there's lots of pros to both. Disneyland is easy. It's so manageable. You can walk around both parks, all the resorts in one day if you really need to. And while maybe this isn't something that's as important to other people, a lot of us Disney fans who've been Disney fans for a long time really love that there's a sense of history in Disneyland. Walt really walked those streets. He planned that whole resort very carefully, and it's really fun to know that you're in a place where Walt actually walked. However, Disney World, lots of variety, lots of options, so much to do, and an incredible location in and of itself. So there's lots of pros to both. Hopefully this video gave you an idea of the differences. So those are some of the most important things to consider when you are thinking about Disney World versus Disneyland. Which place are we going to go? Rides and the fast pass system, the costs, the resorts, the restaurants, and the sheer size of these two places. So we hope that helped. Please let us know in the comments your thoughts on Disney World versus Disneyland. Which one would you choose and why? We'd love to hear from you. This is AJ for Disney Food Blog. Thanks for watching.